The RV 10-year rule is not popular among RVers. It can be a headache if you're out there on the road trying to make a reservation. So today we're talking about 5 ways around the RV 10-year rule. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the channel and thank you for joining me here today. We hate the RV 10-year rule in all honesty. For 6 years we've been traveling in a vintage RV, all of them restored very beautifully, but it doesn't matter because the 10-year rule still applies to a vintage camper. But there are ways around the 10-year rule, and that's what we're gonna get into today. So if you do have an RV that's 10 years old or older, it can help you get a reservation at any of those RV parks. The first way around the RV 10-year rule is to keep your RV well maintained. I know most of you guys do that. Most everyone who has an RV and uses it on a regular basis keeps it well maintained. Here's the issue, is that the RV 10-year rule feels snobby. It feels as though I'm not welcomed at the RV park. And a lot of times it rubs me the wrong way and I don't even want to make a reservation at one of these parks that use the 10-year rule. But the fact of the matter is, sometimes I need to stay at an RV park to refresh my tanks, come back from off-grid and enjoy some RV park amenities. Whenever I'm out in Arizona, say Yuma, Phoenix, almost all those RV parks use the RV 10-year rule. So if you keep your RV well maintained and you make a reservation at one of these parks over the phone, usually they'll ask you if your RV is 10 years old. If you're honest with them and say, look, my RV is 12 years old, but you would never know it. They'll ask you to send a picture. 9 times out of 10, if your RV does look good and you send them a picture, they'll make an exception for you. Again, it feels nasty to have someone judge your RV that's 10 years old. Give me a break. So I don't recommend it sometimes just because it feels like people are holding their nose up at you. But if you need a reservation at one of these parks and they say they have the 10-year rule, offer to show them a picture. Say, look, my RV looks great. I'll send you a picture and they'll 9 times out of 10 let you make that reservation. The second way around the RV 10-year rule, travel in a vintage camper. So like I said, my wife and I travel in a vintage RV for 5 of the last 6 years. And they always looked cute and cool and people were interested in them. And because of that, most of these RV parks that had the 10-year rule never had an issue with a vintage camper that was redone staying at the park. They welcome it in most cases because people are just interested in how anyone has redone a vintage camper and made it look beautiful and gave it new life again. So it's almost easier than just sending a picture of like a 12 or 13-year-old rig because a vintage camper has a certain charm to it that wins over whoever is judging these things to let them in the park. But again, it doesn't change the situation that I don't feel welcome at the RV park in those cases. And there have been times still with our beautifully renovated vintage camper where we haven't been allowed in these RV parks because they are extremely strict about the 10-year rule. So it's not a guarantee that they'll let you in, but having the vintage camper will sometimes give you that little added push where they welcome you in and they're happy to have you there rather than just saying, okay, your RV's in good condition, we'll let you buy this time. Before we get into the next rule, I want to show you this map. It's the map of the 21 best free campsites in the USA. We use it all the time. We made the map. We camped at these locations and we're sharing them with you. We think you'll love them too. So if you want to download that map, it's in the comment section and in the description. Download it, print it up, bring it on your travels, and enjoy the benefit of free camping where no one's judging your RV. But the next way around the RV 10-year rule is by traveling in an RV that has a classic design. So we all know Airstreams haven't changed in the last, 50 years? They basically look the same, a 1970s Airstream and a 2020 Airstream. The trailers look very similar. It's the same deal with Scamps, Casitas, Olivers, a lot of those molded fiberglass campers haven't changed designs at all. And if you're fortunate enough to travel in one of those, then most times you can tell them it's a 2020 or you can tell them it's a 2015 model and they won't know any better if it doesn't show the age through wear and tear. Because honestly, those trailers have had the same design for 20 plus years. These people who are managing an RV park won't know a difference. They won't ask you to prove the year model if the model hasn't changed. So that's another way around the RV 10-year rule. If you travel in one of those, It's my personal opinion that I don't even tell them the age if it looks clean, but you know, that's a risk as well. You can be upfront with the age if you want to, but if you know that the design of the trailer hasn't changed in 30, 40 years and your trailer's clean, no use even bringing it up. It's just better to, in my opinion, go and stay in the park if you need to refill. The 10-year rule is hard to apply to those classic designs. Number 4, way around the RV 10-year rule is to buy a new RV. Not a good idea. I don't recommend it. Buying a new RV, especially now, is highway robbery. They have jacked up the prices of these new RVs so much. They definitely haven't improved the quality of any of them. I would say the quality of all of them, in my opinion, has only gone down because they're trying to crank out so many new trailers. Having a new RV is definitely one way around the RV 10-year rule. It's not the route that I would say to be focused on unless you just want a new RV. It just brings up that it's a shame that this rule exists because a 10-year-old car is not considered a car that shouldn't be allowed somewhere. So a 10-year-old RV should be treated the same way. It's not even that old. Most RV loans are for 20 years. So, I mean, your RV loan might not even be paid off in 10 years. And don't even get me started on it because it's just one of the reasons why I hate this rule. I feel like it's the RV industry's way of working with the RV parks to try to force you to buy new RVs. You definitely won't have to deal with this rule if you have a new RV. Take a little caution just before buying a new RV right now because it's going to cost more and I don't think the quality is going to be any better. And the last way around the RV 10-year rule, our personal favorite way, is to boondock. You know, give the RV park the middle finger and say, hey, if you don't want my RV here, then I don't want to give you my money. I'm going to go somewhere else, or I'm going to go enjoy free camping because there is so much free camping out there. Like I said, this map is our 21 best free sites, but there are thousands of sites out there, especially out west. The farther west you go, the more free sites you're going to get. And they're beautiful. Sure, you got to have some off-grid ability, but it's not even that hard with RVs these days. They make it pretty easy to stay off-grid for a number of days. So if you hate the RV 10-year rule and you feel offended by it personally, as we do, just don't give them your money. Go boondock, go stay at a state campground, go stay somewhere where it's not going to be shoulder to shoulder RV spots all cramped in someplace, and enjoy nature because that's what camping is all about. Camping is not about the RV 10-year rule. That's just a bunch of snobby people in a snobby RV park, in my personal opinion. Sorry if I offended you if you like the RV 10-year rule. The best way around it for me is to not go to those businesses, to enjoy free camping or enjoy a public campground that has space, has nature, and it actually feels like camping. But those are the 5 ways around the RV 10-year rule. Let me know what you think about the rule. Let me know if you appreciate it or if you don't like it and you don't want to give those parks your money. I'd be interested to hear in the comment section. Remember, download our map of the 21 best free campsites. It'll start to get your off-grid journey going. And hey, they're tried and true spots that we have come to love. Thank you so much for watching today. See you next time. Later on.